We're on lesson 16 today, lesson amends. This is a whole different world from what we've been dealing with. This is reaching out of ourselves and our own struggles, our own hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and reaching out to the ones we have hurt or the ones that have hurt us. Listen to this. Principle 6. Evaluate all my relationships. Offer forgiveness to those who have hurt me and make amends for harm I have done to others, except when to do so would harm them or others. Matthew 5 and 7. Happy are the merciful. Matthew 5 and 9. Happy are the peacemakers. We're moving on to step 8. Again, it says, we've made a list of all people we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them. Luke 6 and 31. Do to others as you would have them do to you. We all remember that principle from our kindergarten class. Keep your hands and feet to yourself, doing to others as you'd have them do unto you. We look at making amends, and making amends is this step 8, is just about becoming willing to make amends. So we have to get our minds right. We have to get to a position where we're willing to make amends to the ones that have hurt us or to the ones we have hurt. Making amends is the beginning of the end of our isolation from God and from others. So this is where it starts. That isolation you were feeling before you started recovery, the one you feel in the middle of your addiction, the one you feel in the middle of your resentment, your hurt, your anger, your frustration, that isolation, it stops here. This is the end, but the beginning of that separation, that isolation being out of your life. I'm excited about making amends. Making amends is a practical step that we have to be willing to do, but making amends withdraws us from that isolation. It takes us away from that place in our lives where we're all by ourselves, that we've made it where we're all by ourselves, that was our safe zone. Making amends in relationships bring us back to a place where we're closer to others and closer to God. So we look on making amends, that it brings us away from isolation. If God has forgiven me, here's a question we might be asking before we make amends. If God has forgiven me, isn't that enough? Why should I drag up the past? After all, making amends, doesn't that sound unnatural? Making amends is not about our past so much as about our future. We have to realize that even though we might have questions or concerns about making amends with some of the people in our past, we have to realize that it's not really about the past, it's not really about the hurts, but it's about our future, being there and being able to move on. We got to make a list, step 8, make a list of people that we have harmed or become willing to make amends to them all. So this is step 8 again. It's just about making a list and being ready. Being ready and getting yourself organized where you can make amends to the people that have hurt you or you have hurt in the past. Listen to this. I'm going to read this. It says, often I have counseled people on principle 6 on the critical importance of forgiveness, only to have them say, I never will forgive, not after what was done to me. In this case, the wrong against the individual was often child molestation, sexual abuse, or adultery. Such sins have a deep violation that leaves painful wounds, but they also have a root of dysfunction that brings many people into recovery. Even though something in our past may be a deep wound and a deep hurt, it may be violence against ourselves or against our person, realize that that still leads to dysfunction. Even though it's a topic that may be touchy to some people and definitely happened, but the fact is that still leads to dysfunction. It leads to dysfunction in your own life, in your own recovery process, in the way you even have relationships with your own children or have relationships with your family. You know, we understand that dysfunction can be spread through every area of our lives. Now, Celebrate Recovery has reworded the sixth principle, the step for those recovery towards the step for those with sexual or physical abuse groups. So they've reworked the step, and it reads like this: make a list of all people who have harmed us and become willing to accept God's help in forgiving our predators as well as forgiving others. Realize we have also harmed others and become willing to make amends to them. So we realize that on the sexual group side of it is that we realize that somebody has harmed us, but still being willing to make amends either to that person or make amends to the person that have harmed us. Matthew 5:23 and 24. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. So God wants us to be reconciled back into our relationships before we even come to Him and offer Him a gift and offer Him a sacrifice. Before we come to offer to dedicate our lives to God, God wants us to make amends with the people around us. He wants us to understand that this part of our life is crucial to have a relationship with Him. If there's dysfunction and disconnections in our relationships in this world, there's going to be dysfunction and disconnections with our relationship with God. Principle 3 guide on page 47. This is some instructions on how to start these amends process. On page 47, you will find an amends list. And column 1 is where you list the person to whom you live, to who you need to be willing to make amends, whom those you have harmed. Column 2 is for the person you need to become willing to forgive. List them this week. So on column 2, the people that we be willing to forgive, we can start listing them this week. On column 1, you see that column 1 is where you list the people to whom you need to be willing to make amends. So start on with page 43 in the Practical Guide, Exercise 3. Now, if you're not able to get out to class on the Celebrate Recovery class or can't find one around your area, they sell these practical guides. It's called Practical Guide 1 through 4, and they sell them on Amazon. It's just simply Celebrate Recovery practical guides, and you'll get a list of all 4 of them. They sell them for around, I think it's around $19, $16, something around there, and you can pick them up and you can start working these practical guides even before the class starts, or or if you're not able to come out to the recovery class, you can start working these at your home. But I encourage you to be a part of a recovery group. I'm not saying that to have that support going through these lessons and these practical guides is definitely crucial. To have an accountability partner, or I know some people that are working AA steps, and if you want to work these practical guides to get the scripture involved in the recovery process, that would be beneficial for you too. Maybe you got an accountability partner and sponsor in an SA or AA class or another 12-step program, and you want to bring these practical guides to help along with your recovery process, that would be beneficial for you too. So today we're going to look at amends, and the acrostic for amends is A, admit the hurts and the harm. Admit the hurt and the harm. M, make a list. E, encourage one another. N, not for them. D is do it at the right time. S is living the promise of recovery. So we're looking at the first letter. We're looking at A, amend the hurt and the harm. Once against face the hurt and the harm of resentment. So once again, we got to get real with ourselves and face that hurt and that harm of resentment. Luke 6 and 37. Do not judge others, and God will not judge you. Do not condemn others, and God will not condemn you. Forgive others, and God will forgive you. So we realize that even though we might have hurt and harm of the past, God commands us to forgive others, and that God will forgive us. That we shouldn't judge others, and God wouldn't judge us. Luke 6 and 37. We're looking at the letter M, and M says, make a list. In addition to the amends list, this is more instructions about amendment. In addition to the amends list worksheet and Practical Guide 3, you can also use your Celebrate Recovery inventory on page 30 and 31. Practical Guide 2 to help you make the amends list. In column 1 of your inventory, you will find the list of people that you need to forgive. These are the people who have hurt you. In column 5, you will find the list of people who you owe amends. These are the people who you have hurt. Don't worry about the how-tos when making this list. So when we're making this list, the last thing we need to do is like questions like this: how could I ever ask my dad for forgiveness? Or how could I ever forgive my brother for what he did to me? So the first thing we need to do is wipe that out of our minds. We're just making a list in step 8. We don't need to worry about the how-tos. When it comes time, God will help us on the how-tos. Right now, we just need to focus on who we need to make amends to. So we look at Luke 6:31. Treat others as you will have them be treated. We understand that this is the principle that guides us to make the list in the first place, is that the standard of treatment of others. And we move on to E. Encourage one another. Before you make your amends or offer your forgiveness to others, meet with your accountability sponsor. So before we even start this, we have to realize one thing, that we need our accountability partners to be a sounding board for us. That we can see maybe our motives for making amends to this person or asking forgiveness to this person. Because our motives will be able to tell if are we really doing it for the right reasons. Are we making amends to heal that person or help that person? Are we doing it for our own selfish gains? Hebrews 10:24. And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds. So when we're making amends, this is about good deeds and bringing love to one another, and not to harm or to beat down anybody, even the person that harmed or beat down you. And we see that one another, your sponsor and accountability, we're to spur each other to perform these good deeds, to move in love towards one another, not for them. Approach, we got to realize that our amends are not for them, not for that person, but they're for our own physical recovery. So when we're offering amends to somebody, we shouldn't expect anything in return. Not, well, I'm sorry too, well, I did this too. None of that. We should reject everything that is offered to us because we're there for our own recovery. Our approach to that person should be humble, honest, sensitive, and willingly. So we should come with an open and honest and sensitive heart to their feelings. Even though maybe in the past, it doesn't matter what was done in the past to us by that person, but we need to come with an open, honest, healing, a sensitive heart for their needs. You are making amends for freedom for your own hurts, habits, and hang-ups. So really, if you haven't seen it before, Celebrate Recovery is really, truly, it's about habits, but it's also about hurts and hang-ups. Things that you have truly been struggling with in your life and you just can't get over. This is what this is about. This is what this lesson is about, is getting ready to make amends for them hurts and hang-ups that we've been building in our own life. Luke 6:35, love your enemies and do good to them, and lead them, and expect nothing back. So we got to realize that when we're making amends, we can't expect anything back from that person. I wanted to take a look at the last part of letter N. Now listen to this. It says, do you know that you can become addicted to bitterness, hatred, revenge, just as you can be addicted to alcohol, drugs, and relationships? Now we got to really understand that we can be addicted to our revenge and our anger, our hatred, just as well we can be addicted to alcohol, drugs, and relationships. So we see in this that we can be addicted to relationships too. A life categorized by bitterness, resentment, and anger will kill your emotionally savage your soul. They will produce the 3 Ds: depression, despair, discouragement. An unforgiving heart will cause you more pain and destruction than it will ever cause the person you hurt. So that resentment, that hurt, that pain that you're holding, it's devouring you from the inside out. It's going to devour you, and it's going to keep on hurting you more than ever the person that hurt you in the past or harmed you in the past. You holding on to that thing. It's going to eat you up. I know we all have heard it, that resentment is going to eat us up from the inside out, but it truly does. Indeed, do it at the right time. Ecclesiastes 3:1. There's a right time for everything. Philippians 2 and 4. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. Don't wait until don't wait until you feel like it. So we got to realize that our amends start with looking at others and what their interest is in Philippians 2 and 4, and what the right time is to make these amends and offer forgiveness. And we got, like I said before, this is a proactive step. If we wait till we feel like doing this, we're never going to do it. This step is to provide us with a pro-action action that would further us in our recovery process. That's why you need your accountability partner and your sponsor to sound things off of you, because it's going to be hard to get started. But once you get started, you're going to want to make amends to everybody. But you need that accountability partner and sponsor to pull you back if needed. Because some things we want to make amends for and forgiveness for, we might even hurt the person more because maybe they don't even know about the situation. They don't even know what happened. They're ignorant of it. And, if they're ignorant of it, we don't want to bring things up that might hurt that person even more and cause them to need to go to recovery. This principle takes an active will. S. Start living the promises of recovery. Joel 2 and 29. I will repay you for the years the locusts have eaten. We understand that when we start living the promises of recovery, that God's going to repay us for the things that the locust worm and the canker worm has eaten in our lives. The thing that came in and ravaged us. If that's resentment, if that's anger, if that's habits, if that is addiction, whatever it is, whatever that spectrum is of our lives that's been eaten away at the inside of us, not letting us to connect to one another, not letting us being able to share our true feelings and love for one another, that's creating that isolation between us and God. God said He's going to repay that. He's going to repay them years that it's taken away. And as we go through recovery and making these steps of amends, even though they might be hard and difficult, even writing them down might be hard and difficult for some of us. But the fact is, He's bringing us through this where He can rebuild them years that the cancer of resentment has taken away from us. And I understand that this lesson was a lot of instruction, a lot of things that we have to get down. You might have to listen to this tape twice to really be able to understand what's going on. But the fact is that we have to go through this process. We have to make these amends with one another that we can move on and move on with God. That raiment of anger, that reign of anger around our necks, that noose of anger and resentment around our necks will be broken off. The chains that have bound us for years will be destroyed. And that God will repay us for the years that have been destroyed by our own habits, our own hurts, our own resentment. Again, I believe that this is another week, another growing process, another step in your recovery. I know you can do it. Just keep focused on His Word. Keep focused on God, because it's His power, not your power. It's His will, not your will, that calls us to be a whole person, a people belonging to God. I believe in you. The church believes in you. Your group believes in you. Go ahead with it. Go ahead and get it done. Start making that list of people that you can make amends to and being willing to forgive. We'll see you next week.